Hello everyone, I'm Jayashri. Welcome to my channel and to this tutorial for another really easy crochet top. For this tutorial, I will not be working with sizes. Instead, we'll work the top with the way that it fits around our bodies. So this top is worked using the top down in the round method. We begin at the neckline, working our way down the yoke and down to the body of the top. For this top, I used a natural cotton double knit weighted yarn, which is also the same as a light worsted, and the recommended hook is a 4mm hook, which I kept to. Should you wish to change the weight of the yarn that you're using, I recommend sticking with the recommended hook that's on the label of the yarn. Remember, if you do enjoy my tutorials, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And to everyone that has subscribed, a big thank you. Let's begin. Hope you enjoy this tutorial. Begin with a slip knot. So for the foundation chain, we'll actually be working it a bit different for this pattern. We'll form little loops as we go along, and you'd know the size of the foundation chain you'd need by counting those loops. So to work the first loop, it's chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we'll work a double crochet into that first chain that we worked. So to work a double crochet, it's yarn over, insert the hook into that very first chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. We formed a little loop here. You cannot see it well, but as we go along, you'd be able to see it. So that's a little loop. So again, it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll work a double crochet into that first chain from the chain 4. So it's yarn over again, insert your hook into that first chain from chain 4, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. So notice again that we formed a little loop again. Then it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll work a double crochet into that first chain again from chain 4. And here we formed our third loop. So then 1, 2, 3, 4, a double crochet into that first chain from chain 4, and here you see we've worked our 4th loop. So we'll continue in this manner for the foundation chain, and as I said, you'll work as many of these little loops as you need to, so that the entire ring that we form can fit comfortably over your head and it sits well around your neckline. So just to show you again, it's chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and into that first chain from chain 4, we'll work a double crochet. So continue until you have the length of that you need for your foundation chain. Also make certain that it's in multiples of 2. I've completed my foundation chain and I have 32 of these little loops. So if I count them, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, and 32. And that once I join, must be able to fit over the head comfortably and should sit well around the neckline. So to join my foundation chain, making certain again that it's not twisted and all these loops lie in the same direction, it's slip stitch into that first chain from the start. So I've got my chain, which is now joined, and again it fits around over my head and it sits comfortably around the neckline. You could work as many of these little loops as you'd like. Maybe it's 28 that fits you, or 30, 32, 34, 36, however many you need for it to fit comfortably over your head and to sit well around the neckline. Round 1, single crochet, so you can see that each of these formed little loops. So here I'll single crochet into that first loop. So insert your hook into that loop, that space, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops on the hook. I've single crocheted into the first loop. Then it's chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and single crochet into the next loop. Chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and single crochet into the next loop. So the pattern is chain 6, single crochet into the next loop. Continue to the end of the round. I'm at the end of round 1. So here, before I end the round, make certain again that your work isn't twisted and all these loops lay facing outwards. So just make sure that it's not twisted before you join. So to join, I've chained 6 and I'll slip stitch into that single crochet from the start of the round. Round 2, single crochet 3 times to get into the first loop. So to single crochet, it's insert your hook under the loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. So that was 1, 2, and 3. Then it's chain 2, 1, 2, and this chain 2 is just to pick up some height, and you'll notice that we'll do it at the start of the rounds just to pick up the height for the puff stitch. So here into the same loop we'll work a puff stitch. Generally we pick up loops 4 times for a puff stitch, but in this case we'll pick up the loop 6 times. So then it's yarn over, insert your hook into that loop, pull up a loop, and elongate the loop. That was 1, yarn over, insert the hook into the loop, pull up a loop, and elongate the loop. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then it's yarn over and go through all the loops on the hook and chain 1 to secure. That chain 1 forms part of the puff stitch, so you'll always chain 1 to secure. Then it's chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and work another puff stitch into the next loop. So then it's yarn over, insert your hook into the loop, pull up a loop and elongate that loop. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Then it's yarn over and pull your hook through all the loops on the hook. Then it's chain 1 to secure. So the pattern is chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a puff stitch into the next loop. So just to do that one more time, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Chain 1 to secure. So the pattern is chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a puff stitch into the next loop, and you'll continue with chain 6 and puff stitches into the next loop. Continue to the end of the round. I'm at the end of round 2 and I've chained 6. So to end the round, it's slip stitch into the stitch above the puff stitch. Round 3. Single crochet 3 times to get into that first loop. So that's 1, 2, 3. Then it's chain 2, 1, 2, and I'll work a puff stitch into the same loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then it's chain 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it's a puff stitch into the next loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then it's chain 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So continue with the pattern to the end of the round. That's a puff stitch into the next loop, chain 7, a puff stitch into the next loop, and so on. I'm at the end of round 3 and I've chained 7. So to end the round, it's slip stitch into that stitch above the puff stitch. Round 4, single crochet 4 times to get into the first loop. So to single crochet again, it's insert your hook under the loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. That was the first single crochet, the second, third, and the fourth. Then it's chain 2, 1, 2, and a puff stitch. 3, 4, 5, 6. Then it's chain 7, chain 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and a puff stitch into the next loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and all. Then it's chain 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So continue with the pattern to the end of the round. That's another puff stitch into the next loop, chain 8, another puff stitch into the next loop. I'm at the end of round 4 and I've chained 8. So to end the round, it's slip stitch into that stitch above the puff stitch from the start of the round. Notice also that for every round, I make sure that your loops, the number of loops you're working with, stays the same. In my case, I started off with 32 loops and I still have 32 loops at the end of round 4. So now I'll continue to repeat round 4 until the yoke fits me the way that I'd like it to. So what I'm actually looking for is the yoke to, like when fitted, to end just above the bust. And that would be like in line with the armholes. So I'm going to work round 4 once more, and then I definitely will have the fit correct for myself. You work as many rounds as you need by repeating round 4 until you get the fit of the yoke the way you'd like it to. So I've completed the yoke and I'm happy with the way that it fits around my neckline. The yoke for me now ends right just above my bust and in line with my underarm. So now that I'm happy with that, I'll work the last round for the yoke. So I'm calling it the last round because you'll work as many rounds of round 4 as needed to get the fit, the yoke to fit just above the bust. So for the last round, it's chain 1, single crochet into the same stitch as chain 1. Okay, let me just do that again. I think I got it off camera. So then it's chain 1, single crochet into the same stitch as chain 1, and into the loop I'll work 7 single crochets. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Into the stitch above the puff stitch, I'll work a single crochet stitch. Continue with the pattern to the end of the round. That's 7 single crochets into the loop and 1 single crochet into the stitch above the puff stitch. I'm at the end of the last round for the yoke and I've worked those 7 single crochets into the last loop. So to end, it's slip stitch into that first single crochet from the start of the round. I've now completed the yoke and as I said, it fits to just above the bust. We'll now mark off the back body, the shoulders, and the front body. To mark off the different sections, I'll divide that 32 loops into 4. And for my 32 loops that I've got, it's 8 loops each. So if I count from the start, counting from the start, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'll place my first stitch marker just above that puff stitch. Then it's the next 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. My second stitch marker just above that puff stitch. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. My third stitch marker above the puff stitch. and I'm left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I'm back at the start. And obviously, well, my 4th stitch marker will go at the start, but I don't really need it because this shows me the start and the end. So I've now divided my yoke into 4 equal portions. So if you've worked with 28 loops, you would divide it into 7 loops each. And let's say you started off with 30 loops. So now 30 cannot be divided equally by 4. And what I'd have is 7.5. What I do in that case is I'd allocate 1 loop each to the shoulders or the armhole spaces, and then I'll use the 7 loops for my back body and for the front body. So in that case, if I do have 30 loops, I would count the first 7 loops and mark that off with the stitch marker. I then count 8 loops and mark it off with the stitch marker. Then it's 7 again, marked off with a stitch marker, and I'll end it off with 8 loops. So if you find that you've worked with the number of loops where there's 2 loops extra, allocate those a loop on either side for the armhole spaces. Let's say you've got 34 loops, and like 4 would go into 32 8 times, so you've got 2 loops extra. So what I do is I'd count the first 8 loops, mark it off. Then for my armhole space it would be 9 loops, for my front body it will be 8 loops, and for my second armhole space it would be 9 loops. In this case, for me, working with 32 loops, it worked out perfectly, so I divided it by the yoke by 8 loops each. So we'll now work with round 1 of the body. So then it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and chain 3 counts as a double crochet. Into that same stitch as chain 3, work a double crochet. So it's yarn over, insert the hook into that same stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. So including the chain 3, I have 2 double crochets into 1 stitch. Then it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'll skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and into that 4th stitch from the loop, I'll work a single crochet. Then it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skip the next 3 stitches, and into the stitch above the puff stitch, work 2 double crochets, 1, 2, chain 2, and 2 more double crochets, all into that 1 stitch. Then it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skip 3 stitches, and into that 4th stitch from the loop, work a single crochet. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skip the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and into that stitch above the puff stitch, I'll work 2 double crochets. That's 1, 2, chain 2, and 2 more double crochets, all into the 1 stitch. 2. Then it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and into that 4th stitch, work a single crochet. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skip 3 stitches, and into that stitch above the puff stitch I'll work the 2 double crochets. That's 1, 2, chain 2, 2 double crochets, all into that 1 stitch. So continue with the pattern to the first stitch marker. That was a chain 3, single crochet into the 4th stitch from the loop, chain 3, 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets into the stitch above the puff stitch. I've worked the pattern and I'm at the first stitch marker. You can see that I've chained 3 and I've single crocheted into that 4th stitch at the loop. Then it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and here at the stitch marker, that stitch above the puff stitch, I'll work 2 double crochets. So that's 1, 2, then it's chain 2, 1, 2. So to join to the back or the front body, I'm going to skip the next lot of loops, and I'm going to join to the 2nd stitch marker with 2 double crochets. So skipping that armhole space, I'll join to the next stitch marker, the 2nd stitch marker, and into that stitch I'll work the 2 double crochets. So to join, I've worked 2 double crochets into that first stitch marker, or should I say into that stitch marked by the first stitch marker. Then it was a chain 2, and I worked the remaining 2 double crochets into the stitch marked by the 2nd stitch marker. So I've skipped all the loops in between. Then it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skip 3 stitches and single crochet into that 4th stitch, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skip 3 stitches and 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets into the stitch above the puff stitch. So continue with the pattern to the 3rd stitch marker. I've continued with the pattern and I'm now at the 3rd stitch marker. So I've chained 3 and I've single crocheted into that 4th stitch from the last loop. Then it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and into that stitch marked by the 3rd stitch marker, I'll work 2 double crochets. That's 1, 2, then it's a chain 2, 1, 2, and I'll skip this loops in between, joining to my 4th stitch marker. So my 4th stitch marker is actually back to the start, and here where I've worked that chain 3 right at the start. So into that, the 3rd chain from chain 3, slip stitch to join. So here I've formed the 2nd armhole space. Round 2. So here we need to slip stitch to get into this first single crochet. And to slip stitch, insert your hook into the stitch, pull up a loop and go through the loop on the hook. So slip stitch into all the chains as well to get into that first single crochet. Then it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3. This chain 3 counts as a double crochet. And it's chain 3 again, 1, 2, 3. And into that chain 2 space, I'll work 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets. It's a double crochet, second double crochet, chain 2 and 2 more double crochets, all into that chain 2 space. Then it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and into the single crochet from the round before, I'll work a double crochet. So the pattern is chain 3, 1, 2, 3, into the chain 2 space, work 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, then it's a chain 3 and a double crochet into the single crochet from the round before. Continue to the end of the round. I'm now under the armhole, and you can see from the previous round I've worked the 2 double crochets on the one side, then it's the chain 2 and the 2 double crochets on the other side. So for my stitch pattern, I've worked a double crochet into that single crochet here, then it's chain 3, and in between here at the chain 2, I'll work the 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets. Then I'll continue with the pattern with my chain 3, and it's a double crochet into that next single crochet from the round before. So continue with the pattern, doing the same as I did here under the second armhole. I've worked my stitch pattern under the armhole just as I had done for the other armhole, with the 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into that chain 2 space. So that brings me to the end of the round. I'll chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and to end, it's into that third chain from our chain 3 right at the start. I'll slip stitch. So 1, 2, 3, and into that third chain, slip stitch to join. So round 3, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, chain 3 counts as a double crochet, then it's chain 3 again, 1, 2, 3, and I'll work the pattern as I had done for round 2. I've completed the body of the top and I've repeated round 2, so I've ended at round 26. You can make it shorter or longer depending on your preference, just by repeating round 2. So for the last round, for the edging of the top, I worked it slightly differently. You can see that I've even worked that stitch pattern into the double crochets and into the chain 2 spaces. So what I did for the last round is I chained 3, which counted as a double crochet, and then I double crocheted into the same stitch as chain 3, and then I worked 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into the next chain 2 space. I then worked 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet into the double crochet from the round before. So for the last round, I didn't work any chains in between my stitch pattern, and I worked that same stitch pattern, the 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet in both the chain 2 space and into the double crochets from the round before. So to end the round, I worked 2 double crochets into the same stitch where I had worked the chain 3 from the start, and then it was a chain 2, and I slip stitched into the third chain from chain 3 to join. So the last thing to do was to weave in all those ends.